Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCullum, and I'm here today at Morphy's with what is truly a landmark in semi-automatic pistol development. This is a Swiss Model 1900 Luger. Not any Swiss Model 1900 Luger, this is actually serial number 01 Swiss Model 1900 Luger. The Swiss were the first country to adopt the Luger as a military pistol, and this is the first gun from their first production batch. That is to say, this is the first mass production Luger ever made. And that's pretty cool. I don't normally look at guns that are serial number 1 because there's usually not actually that much that's interesting about them, but in this case, we have a pistol that really is a landmark in military small arms development, and it's also a gun that I think has a pretty cool, pretty impeccable provenance to it. So we can take a look at it. It also, by the way, has a number of very rare features because most of these guns were upgraded with some improvements over the course of their use with the Swiss Army, and this one wasn't. So, a little bit of backstory here. The Luger is developed from the C93 Borchardt automatic pistol. It is in its Luger form. It is first presented to the Swiss in September of 1898 for military consideration. The Swiss were looking at all of the various semi-automatic pistols that were on the market at that point. They did some competitive testing between all of the different models, and they did so with a point basis. They had a bunch of considerations of accuracy, reliability, ease of disassembly, all these sorts of general characteristics of the gun, and they assigned points to the relative qualities of each one on each system. And the Luger ended up getting a score of 95 as opposed to its next best competitor, which was at 79 points. So Luger kind of blew away all the competition. The Swiss held a second trial against the next best gun that they could get their hands on, which was a Mannlicher semi-automatic pistol at the time. Luger was once again the winner, and at that point they decide this isn't quite exactly what we want yet, but this is clearly going to be our winner. They started working directly with Luger and DWM, the company that employed him, to make a few of the modifications that they wanted to the gun. Most substantially, at that point, during the trials, the Luger only had a grip safety. Did not originally have a manual safety on it at all, and the Swiss wanted that. So there was a kind of a crummy, weird version that they used on one of the trials guns. They then improved it, Luger improved it, and added the manual safety that we recognize on the Luger today. The gun went into field trials. The Swiss bought 20 1899 pattern trials examples. They did a bunch of field trials. By the spring of 1900, those trials were complete, and the gun was formally adopted in May of 1900, making Switzerland the first country to actually adopt the Luger. Now, they followed this adoption with an order for 2,000 guns. The first batch of 600 guns arrived in May of 1901. It took DWM a little bit of time to spool up their production because this was the first actual production contract of Lugers. Yes, there were trials guns and there were prototype guns and there were tool room guns and that sort of thing, pre-production guns, but this is the first of the actual production contracts. So 610 guns arrive in Switzerland in May of 1901. That is 600 for the military. That's what the contract stipulated to be delivered during the first fiscal year. And then Luger threw in an extra 10 guns specifically as gifts for the Swiss commission members. It's nice to have some influence, I suppose. And these guns were then issued out to Swiss officers and put into service. Now, the Swiss would make a number of improvements to the system over time, and we'll talk about those in a moment when we take a closer look at this. But they would go on to buy 3,000 more of them and then continue to use the Luger until 1948. But one thing that I like about this particular gun is that while it is in extraordinarily good shape for a gun as old as it is, it was not a gun that was just set aside in a box. This was actually issued to a Swiss officer who carried it and took very good care of it, but clearly did use it through his service career. And he then retired with the gun and sold it to a Dutchman by the name of Henk Visser. If you're really into small arms, you will recognize that name. Henk Visser was a co-owner of Mauser for a while, co-owner of or a partial owner of H&K for a while. He had an absolutely phenomenal small arms collection. Really interesting guy. Like, it's worth doing an entire video just on Hank Visser's life. But he was a very observant, very smart gun collector. He purchased this pistol from the Swiss officer who was issued it. He kept it until his death. When he died, it was purchased by Jeffrey Sturgis, who you may also recognize as a name. Sturgis is the author of the 3-volume encyclopedia of the Luger automatic pistol, in which this pistol is documented heavily, mentioned a whole bunch of times because of its historical significance, relevance. And then only after Sturgis's death did it go through a couple more hands and end up here at Morphy's now. So let's take a closer look. Let me show you what the Swiss specifically adopted and what the very first commercial or military production Luger actually looks like. To me, this pistol exhibits kind of like the perfect balance of intact original finish, but also honest service use. This was issued, this was carried for an entire career by an officer. He treated it well, but he definitely carried it. You can see there's a bunch of wear on the front strap of the gun where it was being held. There's some wear on the side of the trigger here. This guy was clearly right-handed because the wear on the right side is a bit more substantial than the wear on the left side. But at the same time, we can see this gorgeous original deep blue finish that was on the gun, as well as the gold straw bluing that was put on a number of the specific small parts. This is something that was done in the pre-World War I era, does not survive past guns being refinished, and doesn't survive past the First World War just as original industrial production. But those gold straw finished parts are really, really nice looking. I suppose I should probably show you the markings, since that's a significant part of this pistol's history. This is serial number 01, so we have it on the toggle there. It is on the bottom of the barrel. It is here on the front of the frame, and that's the primary serial number location for Luger pistols. We can see it here on the takedown lever as well as the magazine release. And if I take off the side plate, it's on the trigger as well. The toggle here is marked with a DWM factory logo. That's Deutsche Waffen- und Munitionenfabrik, the German weapons and ammunition company. And then they put a very nice Swiss cross crest on the top of the chamber there. These guns went through an approval process with Swiss authorities, and the proof stamp on them is a little Swiss cross, which you will see marked there on the toggle, as well as here on the barrel and on the barrel extension. These stamps being done after the guns were completed, and so that's why those stamps show a little bit of blistering around them, and they go through the finish. I will skip the disassembly on this pistol. It's identical to all other Lugers. If you're interested in disassembly of an old pattern Luger, I do have some other videos that cover it. I do want to show you a couple of the specific early Swiss features though. One of them is this very narrow grip safety. It only covers about half of the width of the backstrap there. That would later be extended over. The details of the manual safety switch here changed over the course of Swiss adoption. Having this not blued underneath the safety is very deliberate. That gives you a visual indicator that the safety is active. The trigger is narrow. That would also be widened over time, like the grip safety. The Swiss magazines are particularly distinctive for having wood base plates, which was normal, with these metal discs in the middle, which was not normal. That's pretty distinctively Swiss. And the reason for this is semi-automatic pistols were quite new when the Swiss adopted this, and one of their concerns was wanting to know the state of the gun. They wanted it to be really obvious if there was actually a magazine in the gun or not. And so they added this specifically reflective in the white metal plate to both sides of the magazine follower so that you could tell at a glance more easily if the magazine was in the gun. The first of the Swiss Lugers used a very flat magazine button here. This thing, the idea here is that you use this to pull down to depress the follower to load rounds into the magazine. The problem they found was that this was actually, it was too thin, too flat, and it was a little difficult to get a good grip on. So later they would extend it, they would make it taller and add a little cutout around it so that you could use a magazine loading tool with it to help pull that follower tab down. against what really is a pretty strong recoil spring inside. Now the problem with making the button taller is that it would no longer fit in the frame of the gun. So they had to actually add a cutout in the side of the magazine well here to make space right there for that new taller button. Now this particular gun still has its original flat magazines, and it has no recess cut in the frame, which is really quite unusual. Well, there you go. If you ever wanted to see a pretty historically relevant time capsule of a pistol, I think this is a very solid contender, the first actual production Swiss Model 1900 Luger. One of the things that you will recognize if you start reading into a lot of small arms development is that the first iterations of a gun are basically always flawed in some way. It always takes actual mass production, making thousands of guns and putting them into the hands of soldiers and having them used in exercises, if not actual combat, to really recognize what needs to be fixed or changed about the guns. And the Luger was no exception. This was the first adopted iteration of the Luger, and it would go through a bunch of small improvements and some not so small improvements. So only one other country actually adopted the original pattern of Luger like this. That would be Bulgaria, with 1,000 guns in 1903. Luger continued to iteratively improve the guns as other countries and private individuals bought them and used them for testing. So by the time Switzerland had its first 2,000 guns in hand, DWM had sold more than 8,000 additional ones on the private commercial market, as well as testing guns to other countries. And feedback from all of those other guns would all be combined together to eventually produce what's called the 1906 pattern, or the new model Luger, this being retroactively named the old model Luger. That 1906 pattern, the Swiss would adopt it with the 1900/06, and most of the other countries, almost all of the other countries that did adopt the Luger, adopted the new model. So it's distinguished by, or it's really identifiable by, flat checkered toggles instead of these dished out smooth toggles. And probably the single most significant improvement to it is that it uses coil springs instead of V-springs, a V-spring, to power the toggle. At any rate, I'm getting a little bit off track here. This is particularly cool because it is really a time capsule of the very first Luger, and at the same time it's literally the very first production military Luger. So I thought that was a pretty darn cool gun to reference. If you would like a whole lot more detail on the adoption of the Luger by Switzerland and the whole process that it went through, I highly recommend CN Arsenal's video on the Swiss Model 1900 Luger, which I will also link in the description text below. You can check it out. Theirs is interesting because the pistol that they have as a demo in their video is one of the later Model 1900 Swiss guns. So you can see some of the iterative changes that were made to it and compare them to this, the basically unchanged time capsule of a first one. Anyway, I'd like to give a big thanks to Morpheus for giving me access to this one to film for you guys and record for posterity. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.